special this is. Well, we're gonna get into this.
This whole day is special.
The whole day is special, exactly. But yeah, for those of you who don't remember, so Angela was my professor, and then I worked with her for like a few months after. But she's been a huge supporter of BLU, and
I'm such a fan. I'm a super fan. So it's really an honor to meet you. It's like exciting.
Yeah, and she's never really seen anything, so this is kind of like her first glimpse of it. And she's seen it from the very beginning. For more context, I took her class, and I think like as I was taking your class, I like would come to her office hours. I'd be like, Angela, like I have this idea for my top level goal. I want to impact the education system. And she's like, oh, like that's nice.
Oh, come on. I didn't say it like that, like, oh, I was like this. Oh my God, that's amazing. How's that? I think that's and by the way, this is all on Zoom.
Yeah,
you only get that excited. It was like during the pandemic.
For more context, this is actually the first time I'm meeting her in person. Isn't that crazy?
Second time you walked by my house, and it was
yeah.
like, I saw him in person.
Yeah.
But it was like still the pandemic, so we didn't want to like see each other too much.
Yeah. But cool, so we have 30 minutes.
Okay.
Very busy. I think the cadence could be, I have a couple questions for you for 15 minutes, and then for you all, feel free to start thinking of any questions you can ask Angela, because I feel like that would be a good thing if they ask you questions.
Yeah, and you know what? If there's one thing I can tell you about succeeding in college, it would be sit the front of the class. And don't worry about it. In college, you can sit at the front of the class. And you know when you're like, I don't know, should like I don't have a great question. I don't have like a super witty, insightful question. Like you especially should ask a question. Like just get over it, right? Like I used to ask questions in college. Like I don't understand what you said, and the professor was confused, and they would say, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. If I knew what I meant, then I wouldn't have the question. I'm just like confused. And they were like, okay, well then I'll try to explain. So don't like ask questions, like sit in the front of class and ask questions, and they don't have to be like brilliant questions, like literally anything, or even sometimes you have a comment. So yeah, we only have 15 minutes, but if you're a little bit like, I am not gonna ask a question, then you should especially ask a question. Okay, definitely. Now your questions.
Also another plug for you, is grit so important? And if you were in high school, how would you go about developing your grit?
Okay, so I do think passion and perseverance for really long periods of time, right? Long-term goals. I do think, I stand by what I said in that TED Talk. Like, I do think it's really important. Why? You know why? Like, life is so hard. You know, it's so hard. It's hard for every single one of you. You know, there's this expression that's often attributed to Plato, the philosopher. It was not actually said by Plato, but it's very cool, so I'll just say what it is. Be kind to all you meet, for each is carrying their own heavy burden. Everyone's life is hard. Rich people's lives are hard. Famous people's lives are hard. Rich and famous people's lives, like, and I don't even know your life, but I am sure you could tell me, if you wanted to, really, like, ways in which it's hard. So I believe in grit in part because life is hard, and just to use Ryann and this program that you're in as an example, you know, you're right, you came to me and you're like, I want to do this thing, and I was thinking to myself like, oh my God, it's amazing, and actually secretly I was thinking like, oh my God, it's so hard, you know, like so hard to do. So why do you need passion and perseverance for long-term goals? Why do we talk about growth mindset and resilience and, you know, how to like get back up again? Because life is hard. That's why. Because anything you want to do in the short time you have on the planet is going to be hard. So that's why grit is important. What would I do if I were in high school? I will say this. Where you are in your lives, I think a lot of people would say like, oh, they need to learn how to work hard. My guess is that most of you do already know how to work hard. I bet you do. Like, I bet you're incredibly hard. Does that mean you always work hard? You never procrastinate? I don't know, but I bet you are all hard workers. I think there's something that you need to focus on that is actually the development of passion, that is more important than the work hard part of grit. So then you can ask me like, well, how would I do that if I were still in high school? And I will give you this advice that is a little bit surprising, coming from somebody who is known for like focus on the same thing over and over and over again. If I were in high school, what I would do is I would sample. So this is the term scientists use for like trying different things. You know, like do something like a sport and then like decide that you don't like it and do another sport, or decide you don't want to do sports and do newspaper, or like get a job at Domino's Pizza delivering. And like sampling is actually the opposite of what I see in grit in like full maturity. When you're in your 40s, like okay, I'm in my 50s. So like, all I do is psychology, and it's very specialized, but if I were you, I would try a lot of things. Like, life cannot be figured out in your head. You have to like try things out and spit them out. So just try stuff. Maybe, you know, this summer you can try to do something that you don't think you'll like. And, you know, maybe you won't do it after that, but that sampling is exactly what I would do. So paradoxically, that's where research shows that people who eventually become specialists start out. When they're 16 and 17, they do a lot of sampling.
For students who are not really sure about what exactly to pursue. So they're sampling all of these different things. Like, how is a student going to know what to specifically be gritty about?
Okay, I want you to raise your hand if you are like, that kind of sounds like me. I'm not 100% sure of like what my calling is. Like, how many of you are like, I do not yet have a calling. I do not have like exact certainty about it. So if you look around, it's like a lot of you, right? And some of you kept your hands down, so maybe you have a calling. Good for you. And it's a blessed, you know, it's a great fortune to really know. But I think most of you who think you have a calling are actually wrong anyway. So I'll just say that most of you don't yet know, right? Life is not entirely predictable. So first I will say, like, I personally didn't know what I wanted to do until I was 32. I mean, think about how long that is. That's like twice as long as you've been alive, right? Like, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't even know I was going to be a psychologist until I was in my 30s, pregnant with my second daughter, right? Like, if I could wave a magic wand, I would have known when I was 16, but I didn't. So I will just say, like, have some patience. Life is kind of path dependent. Like, you don't really know. So you're not probably going to know when you're 18. I don't think you're going to know when you're 21. Like, you're going to try to figure it out. And let me give you one practical piece of advice other than sampling. I think that, you know, it was actually like in the building over, Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, was giving this talk to a group of people like you, but also it was like lots of other people. So it was just a huge room. And somebody asked the question, like, what advice do you have for us? Because we're a lot younger than you. We're not yet the CEO of Microsoft. Like, what advice do you have? And he said some version of this. He's like, the thing that you're doing right now, like, you might not be doing forever. The first job you have out of college, you're actually likely not to be doing that forever. Most people don't like take the first job out of college and stay at that company forever. But he did give you this piece of advice that I'm relaying to you. He's like, whatever you're doing, even if you're sampling, like, just really do the best job you can. Like, don't be one of those young people that he has, you know, managed in his life where, like, you know, they have one foot out the door because they're not sure they're going to be there. They're only half-hearted when they're there. So, for example, I was a high school teacher. There was a point when I was a high school math teacher that I knew I wasn't going to stay a high school math teacher. Didn't mean I didn't come to school like every day, like poured my heart into my students and my lessons. I was like, today we're doing the Pythagorean theorem and it's going to blow your mind. And I didn't think I was going to teach the Pythagorean theorem forever. So I guess my advice is sample. But when you do go out for track, or say you do a summer thing this summer and you're like, oh, I'm definitely not doing this anymore. But like, while you're there, could you just take Satya Nadella's advice and be amazing, be the best person you can be during that time, even if you know that time is finite? And I will tell you, the universe is going to take care of you. You know, those people who like work for us old people, who like, they're there, their eyes are wide like saucers, they show up 2 minutes early, they stay 5 minutes late, they send an email that says, Dr. Duckworth, it was so wonderful to meet with you today, I just want to say thank you. People who are like, by the way, I know we only have 10 minutes for this meeting, so I made an agenda. Here are the 3 things I think we need to get done. You asked me to write a memo for Tuesday. I have it here on Monday in case you want to look at it, but otherwise let's talk on Tuesday. Like, show up and do what you're doing like as well as you can, even knowing that it's not going to last forever and the universe will take care of you.
I love to about what advice would you have for students who are working on something but are stuck in a rut? How do you get out of a rut?
Okay, so this has no science behind it, but I'm just going to say it. I believe in guardian angels. I really do. Like, if you ever read a book, in the back of the book, there's an acknowledgement section. You know what that is? That's like the speech people give at the Oscars. You know, you're holding the golden statue and you're like crying. And, you know, when people think, you know, their dads, Ryan's dad's here, or their moms. I took a call with my mom on the way over here. But sometimes it's like a teacher, or a softball coach, or a neighbor, or it could be a pastor, it could be like, I believe in guardian angels, and let me just like give you one example why, and I think this is an answer to your question, like how do you get out of a rut? Like, I don't think you get out of a rut yourself. I really don't. Like, so just the other night, I'm at this dinner for, like, all these people were into baseball. Do you know anything about baseball? I know nothing about baseball. Like, I'm like listening to this guy talk, and I was like, who is that guy? And they're like, oh, that is like the best catcher in history, right? Like, I can't remember his name. Mike Piazza? Yeah, okay, so some people know about baseball, but I'm sitting here at this baseball dinner. So he stands up and he says, like, I believe in hard work. I believe in passion. I believe in, all of that, and I think you need a guardian angel. And then he talked about, like, the people in his life, and in particular one, who, like, when he was batting 168 said, like, it's not going to be like this forever, right? And, and Mike said, it feels like it's going to be forever. Like, you need somebody in your life to be strong for you. So if you talk about getting out of a rut, figuring out what you want to do, you don't know what to do, like, I think if you could just ask yourself, maybe you almost have one already. Some of you, I think, probably can say, like, if it weren't for this person, I wouldn't even be here now. And maybe you could look for one, I think most of you will find you'll have multiple guardian angels, right? And, look at Ryan and me. He's like one of hundreds of students I've had. But I plan on knowing Ryan forever, right? And if Ryan texts me in 7 years and he needs something, damn straight, I'm gonna call him back, right? Like, because like we now have a relationship. So how do you get out of a rut? How do you get through hard times? How do you know what to do? Like, look for and maybe proactively look for guardian angels. And I really honestly don't know any really successful people who can say they did it alone. Nobody gets out of a rut alone. You get out with your therapist, your coach, your godmother, your aunt, your uncle, your math teacher, your softball coach, or someone else.
I love it. So we have 2 more questions before we open it up. And speaking of guardian angels.
Well, I will say this to the guardian angels in the room. I got a text message February of last year, and it was just I don't know if you remember February of last year, whatever, it was a hard month. It was like terrible weather. I don't know what was going on, but I was getting all these text messages and calls from people who are really gritty, who are about to give up. So this one high school track coach out in California, who I've been in, conversation with for years. I don't know, I don't even know how I met this high school track coach. I also know nothing about track, by the way. But this guy is like a world-class guardian angel. He and his wife weren't able to have kids of their own, and I will tell you that his athletes are his children. I mean, this guy like flies around the country and sees them and like takes them out to dinner with their roommates and like me kind of has this plan. I'm gonna know this kid for the rest of my life. And this coach was texting me to say he was about to give up. I was like, you are like the grittiest guardian angel there is. Like, what? So I'll say this to the guardian angels. Like, I think everybody, even if you're a guardian angel, like, sometimes you also feel weak and insecure and, like, full of self-doubt. Might feel like an imposter. You might feel like, what am I doing? This isn't really helping. I can't do it anymore. But I'll tell you what happened now, right? Because now we're April the next year, so it's like 13 or 14 months later. The track coach didn't give up. He was like, maybe I should retire. Like, maybe, I'm getting old, I can't even run with the kids anymore. Like, and at least what I said to him, but I'm sure a lot of other people were like, please don't. Like, every day you are with these kids, it literally changes a life. It does. And what I'm hearing is like, I'm hearing that it's a really bad day, but if I can be the person to tell you not to quit on a bad day, then so be it. So I think guardian angels also need their own guardian angels. And I'm 100% sure, like sticking it out on the bad days is the right thing to do. And I say that as somebody who's had a lot of bad days and who has her own guardian angels, who tells Angela Duckworth not to quit.
There we go. Give to everyone. Like, from this day, like, what do you want everyone to remember?
Like, Ryan, you're like, just no pressure, but if there's like one thing.
It's okay, you got this.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say something that's like just honest and vulnerable. Like, I've been on sabbatical this year. That means like I have a year off from teaching, and I'm like mostly working in my house, like in my pajamas on a second book. And I'm just gonna say the following. I don't know if this is like great earth-changing advice. It's been a really hard year for me. Like I've been working really, really hard, and the book just sucks. It's like a dumpster fire, right? So like I worked so hard, and I printed it all out not long ago, and I was like, oh, this is not going well. And also, I have no idea what to do. So if I can say this to you, like, you know, the people you watch on TED Talks, or like you hear them on podcasts, or you read about them, and like, I really do think that expression, like, you know, we all carry our own heavy burden. Like, I don't know anybody who has all good days. I don't know anybody who has like unbroken confidence 10 out of 10. I mean, if you asked me what my confidence was on a scale from 0 to 10 over the last month, I'd be like -6, right? Like full of doubt, full kind of like, I told my husband I was gonna retire. He was like, really? You're only 53, and also, this is where our healthcare benefits come from. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So the next time you have a really bad day and you're like, I feel terrible, like I feel like I'm not a worthwhile person, then I feel you, and I have had those days this year, and I'm 53. So like, you're gonna have them, and just remember, like everybody has them. And I don't think that adds up to advice, except to say like, it's par for the course, babe, you know? And you're gonna have a terrible day your first year of college, and you're gonna wanna drop out, and you're gonna wonder what you're doing there, and you feel stupid and ugly and unpopular and awkward. And like, I have felt those exact days in recent memory. So just remember that you are here, and that the bad days won't last forever. Rule of thumb, if you're quitting on a good day, probably should quit. If you're like, everything's great, in other words, say you're doing something like track, or, you know, a business or whatever, and it's about as good as it gets, and you're like, still want to quit. That's what I mean by quitting on a good day. It's like, if you come to your best friend and you're like, this is about as good as it gets, and I still have this feeling in me like I don't want to do it, I don't know, maybe you should. When I quit piano, which I did in elementary school, anyway, some stereotypes are true. Like, I played piano, I grew up in New Jersey, like all the Chinese females were playing piano, and my parents made me play piano. And when I quit, it was like a good day. It wasn't like, it's not like I had terrible recital or anything. I just want to quit. I think if you quit on a good day, that's one, like, rule of thumb. Like, that's probably a reason to say. The second thing, rule of thumb, is this. I think if you ask 2 people who know you really well, should I quit? And in a chorus, they're like, yeah, pretty much, right? Like, then I'm not saying, well, that's a definitive decision, but that's really meaningful. This year, when I told my husband, I quit, I can't do it, like, I want to retire, he did not say, yeah, that makes sense, I think it's time to throw in the towel, you're not a very good psychologist, you know, the book will probably never get written, like, you should do it. He didn't say that, right? And my best friend didn't say that. Right? And some other people that I asked didn't say that. So the rules of thumb are this. Yes, it's time to quit sometimes. How do you know, right? That's a good question Brian asked. And I would say, when you're quitting on a good day, you still want to quit. And like a chorus, the people who love you the most and know you the best all agree with you, like they're all in consensus that quitting is the right thing, then maybe that's something to really listen to. Maybe those are good quitting decisions. Conference, like the one you're in, it's like a live conference where like extremely rich people go for like several days, and they hang out, and then on the TED main stage, as they say, you know, there's talk after talk. So a lot of you have done Khan Academy, like Sal Khan just gave his TED talk. And I don't know if a lot of you have done Duolingo, like Luis Fanon, who started Duolingo, gave a TED, like just this last TED. I have never been to TED. I am not like, I don't know, I'm not the kind of person who hangs out at TED, but when I gave my TED Talk, what it really was there was this like little theater in Harlem, so it wasn't even like the real TED thing. It was more like there was this like thing where PBS, like public television, PBS, like, you know, free television, and TED did like a collab. So it was like no pressure. They were like, hey, can you go to Harlem and do this thing, and we're gonna videotape it, and I was like, okay. So I will say that my TED Talk was not probably as like high pressure as that one. But I will also say this, and that's the last thing I'll say about this because I just go on forever and that's gonna use up all our time. That's not that useful. I will say if you ask me what makes a good talk, I'm gonna tell you this. Because some of you are maybe afraid of public speaking, or you haven't done a lot, or you might code shy. You might be like, I'm on the shyer side. I will tell you what makes a good talk. Like when I interview people in class, like Ryan has seen this happen, like I think when somebody is really honest and they are just like present, you know, they could be nervous, they could have a stutter, they could say the wrong thing, like, but if they are honest, and like they're just there, you know, it's like, what is your question? Like, and just be honest. Like, that's good. You know, you don't have to be like the world's most eloquent person. You don't have to have a voice, you know, that's like recordable. Like, just be honest and there. I think that in general is what makes somebody charismatic, right? Like, it's like, and you know, you've been in the audience and say someone does have a stutter, or they like say the wrong thing, or like they forget what they're saying. But like, if they are really just there and they are trying to communicate honestly, like, dude, that is 99% of public speaking. And if you can do that, then you can do it. Speaking, I think this. When you're in high school, I think you should do at least one thing for 2 years. Rule of thumb. Maybe, Alejandro, you've done that, you checked the box, but just ask yourself, have you done anything for a whole second academic year? Like, I did track, and I'm doing it again the next year. I did newspaper, I'm doing it again the next year. Like, I have this job, I'm gonna do it. And there's something about like lapping, you know what I mean? Like, you know, that second year, so I would give that as a rule. Don't graduate high school without doing at least one thing for 2 years. Okay, so a lot of you are like, yeah, I already checked that box. The other thing I would do is like, I guess I would give you this advice. And I would give this advice to you for when you go to college too. Like, a lot of college students, they're like, well, I guess I should take this course. It has this terrible rating and everybody says the professor sucks, but like, I guess I should take it, right? I'm like, no, go find the professors who are awesome and just like take what they're teaching, right? If there is like a person in your high school that is like a good guardian angel, like maybe let that draw you. I guess I will say like, maybe choose on people, right? Like maybe just choose like the people who you're like, yeah, like I want to specialize and like this one teacher is kind of awesome and like, I didn't think I really wanted to do that, but like, yeah, so I guess I would choose on people and try to do at least one thing twice. Well, black shirt, because you're all wearing the black shirt, huh? Yes, and tell me your name.
Lily.
Lily? Okay, hi.
Hi, so it was mentioned that you have a podcast called No More Questions, right?
No stupid questions.
Oh, no stupid questions, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So,
That would be a good podcast. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
for my group, the All You Project, we have a podcast as well. Can you give us advice, like, how to grow our podcast so it gains more recognition?
Okay, well, I'll give you the advice that, great grace from Lily. So for those of you who are aspiring podcast listeners, I will say this. It's really hard to grow your podcast because this is what Stephen Dubner, who's the co-host of my podcast, who actually already had like a ridiculously successful podcast, he was like, it's just really hard to just like grow it from within. So here's good marketing advice for all of you, because all of you are gonna have to market something, right? You're like selling something. Like, how do you grow a podcast? You have to grow it from like another podcast. So Lily, if you can get to be on someone else's podcast, like, you know, someone else has a podcast and maybe they have 100 people who don't listen to yours, but you go on their podcast and then you're like, hi, I'm Lily, and by the way, this is such a great conversation, and I just want to bring up that I have a podcast and it is called, you know, so like whenever you're doing marketing and you're trying to get more people to your cause, like you kind of have to start from where they are, right? So it's like, where are people already, and then bring them to you. Okay, so Lily, thank you for asking the last question. I think we're at time. The reason I have to go is because I have a call with my graduate student, Ben, and our collaborator. But before I go, I just want to say, like, I have really liked being with you, because you know what? I can tell that you are honest and present, and that made it like a charismatic experience for me. So thank you for letting me share the room with you. And I do kind of love this guy, very biased, but I do hope to know you forever. Yes? Okay, and I'll see you all again, I hope. Thank you.